This is your CEO assessment tip. Today we're looking at how to tell if your CEO is a revenue generator. The majority of people in the population are not revenue generators, and a lot of CEOs are operationally strong, or they may have come up through finance or through middle and back office functions. They may not be a dyed-in-the-wool revenue generator. So here are 6 questions to test in less than 15 minutes if your CEO is a money-making machine or not. The first question I like to start out with is an identity question and just allow the candidate to identify them for themselves if they are a revenue generator or not by simply asking, are you a revenue generator? Are you a deal maker? Are you a closer? You may be surprised, a lot of candidates in the interview say, no, actually, you know what? Revenue generating, that's not really my bag. I have a chief commercial officer who drives that side for me. Or you might look at some real estate companies, for example, they'll be led by architects or engineers where they're really looking at the structure and design of a building, and then they outsource the sales to a broker. It's not necessary that your CEO is a revenue generator, and a lot of the CEOs right out of the gates will identify themselves as either not being one or they will say yes. The second question that I like to ask is, have you looked at our business? And if you have, what are the top 3 things that we could do to our company to increase our revenue? This is a very interesting question to ask because somebody who is a revenue generator will be brimming with ideas. So a real revenue generator, when you ask them that, they'll say, yes, I was looking at your company over the last few weeks, and here are 3 things that I would do. Number 1, I would get into da 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 da. Number 2, I would do this. Number 3, you could do that. They would just start developing ideas, and in fact, by the time they finish telling you the first 3 that they already had in their mind, they've already developed another 3, and then they might even say, oh, and now that we're talking about it, actually, have you ever thought of doing this? And have you ever thought of doing that? So a real innovative revenue generator would just be brimming with ideas, and part of your job as a board is to help the CEO throttle back a little bit and really focus on what are the top 1 or 2 that we're going to implement. Someone who's not a revenue generator, when you ask them this question, will say, well, that's something we need to research. You can't rush in. There's so many dynamics. We would have to look at it, and I would have to take a deeper analysis and do a SWOT analysis. And they start saying all of these things, and they're really buying themselves time because they don't have any money-making ideas. They don't have any revenue-generating ideas, and they never are. They never will. They're not a revenue generator. So if that's really one of the criteria that you need in your CEO, you need to let them go. I would just end it there. The third question that I would ask is, who is your customer and why do they buy from you? The CEO has to be able to answer this question if they are going to make any meaningful impact on the revenue generation side of the business. If you don't know who your customer is and you don't know why they buy from you, that's going to cause an issue. One of the things that you also want to look at is, how do they answer the question? Do they look off and they start feeling their way through the answer, our customer is, or are they giving you a very empirical, data-driven answer where they're saying, we have 3 core profitable segments. Our core targets are 50-year-old males who are blah, 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 blah. Our next biggest target are females from this demographic and from this region. And they start to really break it down. Who are their customers? What are their customer segments? And then what are the psychographic drivers that's differentiating those segments and causing them to buy that service or product? The fourth question that I would ask is, describe a marketing or sales initiative that you have led and implemented that targets your customer at the peak of the buying cycle. So what is the buying cycle? What is at the peak? So if I'm buying a car, for example, the last thing that I do at the peak of the buying cycle is I go to the banks, I check the auto loan rates. So anybody who is going through and researching the auto loan rates is generally at the peak. They're probably just about to purchase a vehicle. They've chosen the vehicle, they've chosen what their budget is, and now they're just trying to get the best rate on their auto loan. So the CEO may institutionalize, or this could go with the head of sales, but at least the CEO would still be aware of it, a program that targets people who are at that peak of that buying cycle. So what's the peak of the buying cycle? What is your customer doing? Where are they going? The last step just before they come and give you their money. And is your CEO creating programs that take advantage of that moment? This is where you can get a competitive advantage by really understanding who your customer is and what is the peak of their buying cycles. Question 5, this has really been taken from whenever I sit down with someone who's really in the top 1% of revenue generators, there's one thing that they all do, and that is utilizing HR, utilizing the learning and development program to build the right skills that their frontline staff need to close the deals. So the question is, describe a learning and development or training program that you championed that delivered an increase in sales or revenue. There's many things that the person can do or implement at this point. For example, one of the trainings that one of my candidates did was trained their sales staff on what's in their customer basket and to suggest substitutes for branded products to unbranded products that deliver a much higher profitability to the company. So if you have an Apple phone charger in your basket, for example, the company may only get 5, 10, or 15% of that as net, versus if you use this no-name brand from XYZ company, we're running 80% profit on that phone charger. So switching these small items out, these accessory items out to unbranded, high profitable items had a massive impact on the P&L, but of course they needed a training. A very obvious training to give is closing. So how do you close a sale? How do you develop your client portfolio? So these are all L&D pieces. And so when you look at any success story, the team needs to develop the capabilities to succeed. The team needs to develop capabilities to outperform the competition. So what is the L&D program that you have championed that drove bottom line sales? All the top performing revenue generators that I have dealt with are active in this area. Question 6, the final question that I ask is, describe a time you maximize profitability per customer. This is a nice metric. This really separates the wheat from the chaff. So you're really at this point looking at what services, how can I upsell this customer? What can I actually do to maximize my transaction? If you ever buy something from the television, they put a lot of time in investing in this last point. So you call in to buy, the Jerry Springer video, and then they say, oh, by the way, we have this behind the scenes video for another $3. Why don't we add that into your bill? You're gonna love it. And then they start adding, and so what are the add-ons? Or you go to Sephora, when you go to the cash, you have all of these little trinkets, chapsticks, breath mints that you can pick up and add to your basket, and they're trying to maximize your profitability per transaction. Those are a few questions you can use to catch a CEO off balance. If you like those, you could pick up our book, CEO Assessment and Selection, which has over 400 questions that you can use in your CEO interviews. Also, on our book page, you can download a free sample of the book, and you can get a link to our book page in the description of this video.